I know.
Yo,
Nice.
Thank you.
dope stuff.
Way to bring
Yo,
us.
thank you guys.
Way to bring
Wow,
us in with some techno.
Yeah, totally. I haven't been out raving in like months. I'm a little bit longing for that.
I
That's
was
why
gonna say I find myself
What, Alissa? You find yourself what?
dancing in front of the computer with you a lot lately, Shonda.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I got to tell you though, Shonda, there was a joint you posted on IG the other day, and I kept turning it up, and, like putting the phone up, like check that out. You know, of course, everybody's room like right, but TV's on.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Well, before we get started, I want to say to everyone in the chat, thank you for joining us. Welcome. We have some teenage engineering peeps and family in the house. We have Alissa with teenage engineering. We have Moises, and he's a teenage engineering mentor. And of course,
Hi.
my co-host, BboyTech.
Yo, what's going on?
So before we start asking you all the fun questions about all the teenage engineering gear and stuff, Moises, tell us what you were doing. Because I saw a lot of like the OPZ, all the good stuff on your desk. So
Yeah. So this little ditty was OPC, doing most of the sequencing, all the beats basically. And I was playing around also with the PO modular, the 170. And that was doing a bit of like I was sequencing it from the OPC and also sending that into my other modular rig and like doing some effects on it. So it was quite minimal actually in terms of gear. It's just like basically OPC, and I think I was using the like another oscillator from my own stuff and the 170 small modular.
was the 170 that I heard that kind of high, like almost like a sonic bleep, bleep. Was that
Yeah, exactly. So that was that. I was like modulating a bit of the pitch and just like setting a little bit of a sequence just to get like some rhythmic patterns going from the OPC.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, usually in the workflow, I like to keep it like, especially for live stuff, I really like to just keep it minimal with like a couple machines and just like a laptop, because I find that it just like kind of limiting yourself just makes it more direct, because I always find myself like wanting to make new music with a bunch of new gear or just like trying to throw everything at it, and just like sometimes it doesn't work so well.
You know what's interesting about that? You say that because I find that like you can have a ton of stuff, but the best stuff is always with the least amount of whatever it is. Like it's you know, literally all of this and all of that, and then it's all of this over here. But then I'll do a patch and it's like, oh, just an oscillator and a filter, and Batumi, and it was beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nice. So you said you were patching the PO modular to your regular Eurorack stuff, and you know, some people may know because they may have some of this stuff, but it is compatible with Eurorack without any problems, or you have to do any kind of conversions or weird connectors or anything.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I mean, everything's been working like pretty solid.
Yeah.
Mostly, pretty much like plug and play. So that's
nice.
Kind of cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
It's totally set up to work with other Eurorack. So
okay.
It'll always be easy and good, no matter what you're patching it to, as long as your cables are long enough.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. And then I remember wait a minute. Firstly, I'm feeling a little left out. Everybody's got these things in the back there.
Oh yeah.
So here's the thing. What's cool about it though too is that you can actually kind of hack these or kind of get your DIY on and put them into your Eurorack if you wanted to. But honestly, I don't know why you would want to, because that yellow and that red, those as a product. It just looks slick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
I saw, I think it was Cuckoo who has the 400, which is the yellow one for those in the chat out there. It's he has it turned. He mounted his sideways. You guys see that, or the other way? So it's like less of a gradient, which is kind of cool. I might try that just to kind of like switch it up. Like I like the angle of that.
I experimented with mine that way for the angle of getting it into my Euro rack, but also it just looks so pretty standing up the other way that in the end I feel
Yeah, totally.
No doubt.
It's amazing, yeah.
So Moises, when you were using your OPZ, was that like the control or like the clock of everything that was happening, or what was your clock?
So I was sending that.
Sorry if you did.
I mean, I was sending CD from it's called the OP Lab, right? So there's basically a module that you put inside the OPC, which makes it like Eurorack compatible, and it gives you about like, I think 2 gates, like 2 channels on gate, like independent, and then 2 CD modulations, and also you have MIDI in, I think. Okay. I mean, there's like so much stuff, and like I say, I haven't like totally delved into it. So
CD from Op Lab,
yeah. Is that like those little cartridges that I've seen those where they're kind of like little adapters or cartridges that you put inside? Is that okay?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cool.
And this one just like makes it like super nice, like especially with these synths that you can take to the park and just like, with batteries, have a little jam with the built-in speakers, outside.
Very nice.
I always thought it was dope how the OPZ, the OPZ does come with the or that you could get that little sort of CV device for the inside of it. Whereas it was a little more difficult. There was an external piece or something for the OP1. I remember having a friend and he had, I can't even remember what it was, but it was like just I guess it was a CV to MIDI converter of some sort of USB to MIDI converter, and he was able to use that. But this seems to be a much more sleek sort of, situation where it's kind of combined and easily because I've seen people controlling just about everything with the OPZ. And then Trovarsi, you remember when we did?
No, it's really sleek, and it just you just screw it in and pops right in the device, so it doesn't have the profile at all. It's great.
Yeah,
right inside of it, Alissa. Like you just take off the back and pop it on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, in the back, like where you would unscrew it to put in the battery. There's a cavity that you can just pop it right on in there, and so and it's already built. The outputs are already built into the panel, so it just takes a second and it's all hooked up.
Dope. Nice. I love that. It makes it really sleek, and I'm just amazed at how much people are doing in such a small footprint. Yeah, like I was saying,
it's really
came to the NAMM party that we did, and he performed with 2 of them. And so I was kind of out on the terrace, and somebody came out of the terrace and like, Cuckoo's tearing it up in there, and he just got 2 OPZs. And I was like, and I was listening, and I'm hearing this huge sound blaring out of the club, and I'm like, no way he's got 2 OPZs only.
Yeah. I remember asking him for what he needed for setup, and he was like, I just need 2 little like 1/8 inch. I was like, that was like the easiest setup connection
ever, right?
for the entire event. I was like, that's awesome.
Right. Because everybody else is like, yeah, I'm going to need at least 2 guys with 8 wires each. Right. Yeah, but he was killing it with just 2 OPZs. And firstly, I should probably say, I'm never sure what to call it, whether OPZ and OP1 or OP1 and OPZ. So what is it? I call it both every time.
Well, Swedish people call it OPZ.
Okay. Now we have another wrinkle.
I'm not Z, so I call it OPZ and OP1.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna roll.
Yeah, likewise. OPZ.
OPZ. I'm gonna roll with that.
Yeah. So Alyssa,
we've got to vote for Zed.
Yep. Listen, I have a question. So I know that you're heavily like all about like education and working with people and kind of elevating them when their music or with their modular. Like, so what is can you talk a little bit about like your role, like what you're doing with teenage engineering, and like just kind of give all of us like just like a little school slip?
Yeah.
No pun intended. Pun intended.
Totally. So I work with education at Teenage Engineering, which encompasses a few aspects of stuff, to be sure. So interacting with our lovely mentors, such as Shonda and Moises over here, as well as a handful of people around the world, is one of the things that I get to do. Coordinate with the other people who are providing and bringing education is another thing. So I get to talk with educators and people who share our tools out in communities and groups. Workshops is something that hopefully this fall or sometime soon will be back out sharing with people. And in the meantime, also doing some educational stuff online, like the videos that we released on building. And in general, I'm super lucky. Obviously, I have the whole teenage team, but Tobias is my direct teammate and all of that, and he's a super great person to work with. So he and I get to kind of look at the super fun world of what does it mean to share these awesome tools that we have with people, which, as you guys know, is a big joy of mine. And I particularly love the beginning of people's music careers and introducing them to things. And so it's really exciting with teenage. There's an opportunity to do that a lot, especially with some of the various pieces like pocket operators that are really accessible and you can bring wherever. So
yeah.
So what is it that you like about the, you say you particularly enjoy like the beginning of people's careers? Is it just kind of the wonderment of them diving into something new? And do you see that light bulb sort of go off at some point?
Yes, and it's so cool. Like the first time someone patches a modular synth and they like did it themselves and they're maybe just turning the pitch knob, and that look on their face that is like, I made this.
Yeah.
I did this. It's
No
really
doubt,
cool.
totally.
And that's such a satisfying moment. I'm like, I can work with synths forever as long as I get to see that look on people's face.
Yeah, I could dig that. That. Very cool.
So are you, so I know that, so what you're saying, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you a question about the videos. So you're going to start doing more, that's your kind of your goal, is to start putting out more videos, kind of tutorials on, say, like some of the modular aspect or the pocket operators as well? Or?
Well, I
question, sorry.
No problem. I love Tobias's videos, and so I hope to mostly see his, but also and especially while we're online, I want to do some things there. And as some people have pointed out online, they feel I have an ASMR voice, and so I'm kind of thinking maybe I should read some manuals for people.
There you go.
Relaxing,
Personalized readings.
Yeah.
Hey, books on tape. That's not a bad thing,
Right.
So,
right?
Yeah.
It'll be classic. But then you could have, it'll be people can learn teenage engineering devices by osmosis, right? They can just go to sleep with you in their headphones and wake up and know it all.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Learn Spanish in your sleep. Learn how to sequence in your sleep. All kinds of
stuff.
In my master's program, there's this colleague of mine that she actually made for the exam. So I'm studying sound studies here in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And she was like, we're all preparing for the exam, and she actually made a podcast for her in ASMR style and with very nice like background new age music to sleep with it and kind of have all the answers about psychoacoustics and like shepherd tones and all this kind of fun stuff.
Wow, that's dope.
It's actually a super beautiful as a piece in itself of like how she's reading it. It's like, wow, so nice.
Wow.
And it really like sticks, So
Right.
Alyssa, I think this is
So we
You're
might
onto
be on to something. Might be on to
Yeah.
something there.
With like
So-
some OP
I'm down. We did
background.
1 hour or something.
Yeah. You could like do like a
That's
patch
true.
and then read with that in the background.
Oh, somebody
You
was
do the
asking.
soundtrack
That's
on the
true.
fly.
I do that sometimes. I make patches to sleep to for myself sometimes.
That
Like
actually makes
leave
sense.
my little thing. Yeah.
I have to tell you,
Yeah.
there was one night not long ago. It was just a couple of maybe last week, and I ended up uploading a video to YouTube. But I made this patch, and I couldn't sleep that night. I made this patch, and after I made that patch to kind of let it build a little bit, I actually found myself like, I can go rest now. You know what I mean? It actually kind of relaxed me a little bit, brought me down.
Totally.
I don't know if you guys saw that question that kind of popped up. I popped it up there for you guys from Samuel. Do you do online workshops? I'm looking.
That's a good question. We haven't had any recently, but I think that's a great idea and definitely something to think about. What topics would people love to see? I'd like to hear what kind of workshop they would want to. I'd love to think about that.
I'm pulling up the part of your. Sorry, I'm looking up because I'm looking at my other screen.
Yeah.
I'm pulling also the website. I was going to drop it in the chat for people because I know one of the tabs that you guys have kind of touches a little bit on that. So just I'm going to put it in here just so people have that. Just kind of.
That's true, and there's a variety of mentors who have been live streaming. And I know some of them are doing different workshops too, and those also get posted on the website. And sometimes they're even in Russian and cool things like that. So hopefully there should be something for everyone.
Nice.
There we go. So another question that kind of popped up earlier in the chat, people were talking about the connection with MIDI, and I know we kind of touched on it by talking about with the OPZ and adding that component to the back. But what are some of the, because I see like on the 400 and the 170, it does have a MIDI component. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, just to kind of give people just some ideas on how they can maybe integrate some of their other pieces of hardware that they already have in their studio with any of the OP stuff or PO stuff and OPZs. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of letters.
Yeah, the PO lines have they have some MIDI out, and they also have a pocket operator sync out, as well as being compatible with Eurorack. So in theory, you can probably connect it to a whole host of your gear with minimal effort and just a cable. I don't use MIDI that much, so honestly, I am probably not the expert on taking the MIDI out of there, but it does have a simple MIDI out. And those keyboards, the keyboard on the 170, which is also the keyboard sequencer PO modular 16, are super tight, just little touch plate keyboard sequencers. For folks who haven't seen them, they're just like a really powerful sticker that somehow, with the help of a little ribbon tool, to your synthesizer and amazing amounts of data, and you can put in impressive amounts of notes and patterns into there. That's actually one of my more favorite things about the pocket operator line, just how fun and impressed I was with that as an object, putting that together. I was like, whoa, this is really cool.
This is a sequencer, just so everyone in the chat, so they know what we're all talking about, is this the PO16.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a sticker, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Moises, have you been using the MIDI out on that?
It does have MIDI out. And like right on the side, you need, I think, like one of these 1/8 inch to MIDI adapters.
Mm-hmm.
But
have you used it at all?
I haven't used it. I haven't been doing MIDI either so much lately. Mostly like CV stuff. And but I need to, like, for syncing. I'm just like, for the past year or so, I have been getting kind of like out of the DAW. So I mean, I mostly just use Ableton for recording like live live takes and this kind of stuff. But you know, I mean, for sure, it's like, I mean, if I would have like a bunch of gear with MIDI, I mean, definitely I would connect it to sync it up. But yeah, I was kind of missing the MIDI in actually on the OPC, but I'm sure that actually there is, no, right, via USB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, with the OPC.
With the OPC, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of dope to have the MIDI out on that keyboard, because you know there's a lot of sequences out there that you know may accept MIDI of some sort. You get converters and run it in and be able to play stuff out, because some people are better programmers, some people are better players, so it's cool to have that flexibility on that keyboard like that. And it's such a cool little interface. It has a sequencer in it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Isn't the 16 also on the 170?
Yep,
like
yeah. The module itself is built into the 170, and then it has its own solo home in the separate casement that is the 16.
You know, the 170 really reminds me of the MS-20, like the classic MIDI in the sense of like the form factor, but also the fact that you can just like patch it in really quick and just like start making nice like subtractive synthesis stuff like right away.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. I'm just like an MS-20 fanboy forever.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you know, even though the 400 has so many options, I have to confess the 170 is my favorite, I think, because of what we were talking about the simplicity of like sometimes just having like the thing and it does what it does, and that's really satisfying, and it's like compact, and I just sit there and it's no chance of being overwhelmed with options or potentials. I'm like, I know roughly what I'm going to do with this, and I can just really sit with that. I've really been liking that.
Sometimes with stuff like that kind of stuff ends up being your go-to tool, just because you know in the fit of creativity, sometimes you need this thing, and that thing does that thing. And it becomes go-to because you know you could depend on it to do that, rather than, you know, designing a patch and going through a lot of stuff, which, I mean, that has its place too, but I could definitely see how something like that becomes your go-to thing from time to time. It definitely happens to me.
It's pretty dynamic too. I mean, I used it in a video I put up recently, and I got like a bass, and then I got some laser sounds out of it, like just with the turn of a couple knobs. So yeah.
I was doing a thing where I was still gonna do it, but a video for like one synth. You know what I mean? Just kind of like this is this synth. I only have this one thing, and I'm going to use it with my sampler, and I'm going to create a thing and then just upload it and kind of be like, because a lot of times people don't think about how it could be like a mono synth or something like that, and you could get this wide range of sounds out of it, from drums to bass to things that could become pad-ish sort of things. So that looks like it's one of those types of deals.
Nice. I know some people were talking in the chat about DIY aspect and like building, and when I built these the 400 and the 10 and the 170, I built them with somebody who'd never built any module or did any sort of building, and they're learning how to also learning how to patch, and just helping and working with my friend Sean Cruda. He was like able to quickly, like, it was very rewarding, you know. It wasn't like super overwhelming, like in the sense of you had to like solder, you know, it's like the parts are there, you follow the instructions, but also the format, the layout of it, to show him how to patch. I like it has its simplicity. It is nice to, but you can also get some complex sounds on it for somebody who's been patching already. So I think it serves both parties, you know what I mean? Which I like that about it. I just want to address that. And in terms of other DIY aspects, I mean, I know, Alissa, you have been like in the DIY community, and maybe can give some people like just general suggestions just about how to start off in DIY and where can they look. And I know you do the synth library, all that. So maybe kind of, that's
it's true. No, yeah. And I'm a really big fan of DIY stuff, and that's kind of how I got into, even before I knew about modular synths, I learned how to solder. And it's a really practical skill. Even it's also fun, but the practical side of it is that things are like usually cheaper to buy as kits and build them than to buy a built instrument. So that's super convenient. And for learning about soldering, so I always tell people soldering's not that hard, but it's worth learning the right way to do it. It might only take you like 10, 15 minutes to learn the right way to do it, but if you learn the wrong way, it would be very frustrating. So there's a variety of videos online, but of course there's a lot of synth communities too, depending on where you live. And we have like the SoCal Synth Society, and we have Synth Library Portland, Synth Library Prague, there's Sounds Queer Vienna, there's the Atari Punk Crew ladies in Brighton. So definitely reach out to your local community, but a good YouTube video from Adafruit or something like that on the proper soldering techniques will also suffice if you can't manage to make it to a local place. And there's a really good picture online that is a solder blob diagram of the right and wrong solder blob shapes, and it's one of the most useful DIY.
I know that one.
I need to watch that video.
Funny, but
Could you send me a link later?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah. If you drop the link in the other area, I'll drop it in the public chat so everybody can.
Yeah, totally.
Sweet.
And for getting started in some stuff to it, patching with Nicole, that series, I'm a big believer in that. It has a lot of basic synth ideas, but also shows you how to make your own modular cases out of cheap materials and stuff like that. And so that's patching with Nicole, Nikol. I can send over the link for that too. And I think if you watch that video, you'll see the variety of options, because you can really DIY stuff from cardboard if you're in a pinch at home or something. Like you could make face plates for the PO system to house in a different case out of cardboard if you wanted to downgrade yourself from the aluminum for some reason. But
if you for some reason want to repurpose,
like if you just want something to do, whatever, you could do this cardboard.
I do want to address another question in the chat. I'll pop it up, and it's just talking about some of the improvements, and just talk about the release of the PO 400 and the 170. Just like some of the differences.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, there's a re-release, and there's a variety of differences. Some of them might sound less exciting than others, like the size of the screw holes changed, but it makes it a lot easier to build. The oscillators have been retrimmed to have a better range that's way more fun to apply to your music. Some of the changes you might not even notice, but there are things like the noise level has been changed on the noise module on the 400. So now it can trigger everything super proper. The volume knob is straightened out. So really things work much more intuitively now, and the build time is a lot faster.
Nice.
Is that for both of them?
Yeah.
Or is
Totally, yeah. And for anyone who did build the other ones, the standoffs also changed, and they're so easy to screw in now. So that shaved a lot of time off too. Yeah.
Nice. Are the prices still the same from before with that?
Let me see.
I believe, yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like, but I can't be sure.
Let me see.
I think the price is for the new version. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
Here,
Yeah, I remember when I was building the 400, I was looking at an old video from, I don't remember from who, but they were mentioning about how the screws you had to kind of like, you know, get get the screwdriver a little bit in there so you can kind of make space for the screws. So I did that, but apparently it was like an old video.
That's probably worth mentioning though. Then, if that's the case,
But yeah,
people have
so
little
you should only watch the new improved build videos from the official ones from Teenage Engineering. Yeah.
Right.
Good tip.
That's a pro tip.
Pro tip.
No doubt.
So Moises, like, how did you get involved in being a teenage engineering mentor, and kind of tell us a little bit about that?
So I guess it was like, how many months ago, Alissa? You asked me. So originally,
maybe 3.
Yeah, like 3 months ago, something like this.
Very cool.
So I've been working with something like some I don't remember. I don't know time anymore these days. But yeah, so I've like my past jobs I've been working in virtual reality stuff and like using Unity and a bit of like creative coding. So I think Alissa like approached me because I was working doing that, and especially the OPC features a super nice feature that I don't think has been like explored much yet, which is the Video Lab, which is you can actually make scenes, visual scenes that you can actually control directly from the OPC using another software called Unity, which is mainly used for like game development and like creative coding, visual stuff. But using this software, you can actually create like video packs, if you see. So maybe you can share a link so people can get familiar with this. So video packs are basically scenes that you can control via MIDI trigger or like MIDI notes or MIDI CC values that you load into the OPC app on the iPhone or iPad or Android devices. So you have these like, you basically create like a animation and you create triggers. No, so for example, if you want to trigger the rotation of a square or a cube in your scene, you can set it up to one of the knobs or one of the kick drums. So every hit of the kick drum, you have this like rotation. So
nice.
That's very cool.
So I'm just gonna put a little demo here. So this is like the first link I found on YouTube, actually. So I'll just post it in our private chat.
Okay, let me drop it in for everyone.
Yeah, cool.
I've been having such a fun time with that feature, even though I'm more of a hardware person, as we know. There are moments when I'm talking to Moises that I think I'm going to learn computers, and so I've started to dive into the world of Unity. And it is so fun. You can make stuff rotate, get bigger and smaller, and it's all already tracked into your music there. And you just open up the app and it just plays right along with you. So you're your own DJ, just like that. It's really satisfying.
Like if I had a little projector, would it output to the projector for everyone else to see?
Yeah, exactly. So you could just connect like the adapter from your phone to a projector, and then just like basically you have an AV show, audiovisual show on your pocket. It's
nice.
That's
crazy,
very cool.
actually.
Nice. Very cool.
Let me share my screen maybe for a little bit to show all of you a little scene I was working on.
Okay.
So you can kind of get a test. I just need to find the cable for the PC.
While you're looking for that, Alissa, there's a special shout out. There's somebody in the chat that would love for you to please read the manual in Swedish. So you definitely might have stumbled onto something there with the reading the manuals. And
I'm gonna have to really practice my Duolingo before I do that. I only have about 5 Swedish words.
I think that's going to be the fun of it, though. Nice. You know what I always dug about, and I think maybe somebody had mentioned it. We always dug about teenage engineering. There's something about this idea of the way these small footprints of everything. Everything's a smaller footprint, and it almost feels like it appeals to, well, I mean, honestly, I've seen people of every skill level and every sort of experience level use teenage engineering stuff, but I think there's something that is appealing for like the learning and the teaching and that sort of thing with these sort of smaller devices. And I mean, for something like the OPZ and the OP1, they're the everything boxes, and it's still damn near pocket size. Like you could throw it in your book bag and do anything. It's a kind of wonderment of teenage engineering style of engineering, like being able to condense everything down into something really fun and really usable and really approachable. Is that kind of like the teenage engineering way and spirit of things?
I definitely think that, yeah, the playfulness and approachability are definitely a big thing that they think about. I don't want to talk too much about their design ideas because I'm sure our designers have better ways of putting their sentiments, but I definitely notice that too. And for me, I'm used to carrying around all this heavy stuff, and I'm getting kind of old. Your back, your shoulder, you know what I mean? And
stuff weighs on you after a while,
yeah, just my OPZ, and I was like, oh my God. Like I feel light and free, and I'm sitting in tiny seats on trains and planes in these small spaces, able to compose whole pieces. And I just thought about all of the time I spent patching my modular systems, and I was like, oh boy, I should have incorporated other gear much sooner. Like
right.
Somewhere other than a huge table is a really big deal in terms of who you can share. Yeah.
Right. So I saw in the chat, so somebody's like OP1 is a classic. They're talking in the chat about is there going to be any like firmware updates or anything like adding any effects or anything like that? Is there any talk of that, or is that something that is in the works, or you're not too
I don't know of anything on the public agenda that I can announce about that, but definitely we remember and love the OP1, and people should know that we definitely think of the OP1 and just keep an eye out on the future and know that it is also very dear to us. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Cool. So let me just show you. I don't know if this is gonna work so well. I couldn't show it from my computer, but I can show you from my phone one little scene I made. So
is it on your computer screen? Because if you share, I think I can share it.
It's not on my computer screen. It's running directly on my phone. So
got it. Okay. I'm gonna zoom you in, so that might help.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So,
that's cool.
So right now I'm controlling these animations with my OPZ right now. So this rotation is actually from the.
That's cool.
From the actual device. So I'm going to show you here. So right now, if I do this here, you can kind of rotate the bottom. So you can program.
That's pretty cool.
Program these animations directly to be controlled with the OPC, and that's like pretty amazing. Of course, it's just like super simple scene, but the more you go into this software, and obviously I understand, like, coming as a musician, it's kind of like maybe a new paradigm to think about, right? So it's like right now we're not only musicians, like electronic musicians. It's kind of like this new paradigm of being like a more holistic kind of artist, where you also take care of your visual aspect and as well as your music on equal levels, which I think is kind of like the idea that people are going for more and more right now, to kind of like actually form yourself like an identity, right, for your music. And this is like a great tool that you can use for that, because Unity is free, and I mean, to integrate it with the OPC is just like it's a dream. And especially what you were talking about, the small footprint is just like it's just crazy. I mean, you can just take like a complete AV show on your phone and the OPC, and
you go from being
super futuristic.
You go from being like an electronic music performer to like it becomes an electronic music experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of
you're able to produce your whole show.
Right?
Yeah. Totally.
And it's important to note that you don't have to know as much about visual technology as Moises, because you can just, for instance, take some smarty like Moises's pack that's already made and just drop it into your thing, which is the level that I'm at. And that's still super duper fun, because you're still controlling and manipulating this stuff with your button pressing, but you don't have to figure out all at once how to code something from scratch to your live show, which is a big relief, because it kind of takes a while to learn whole new programs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like a really nice community on Facebook, like the Video Lab community. There's a Facebook group, and everybody's like sharing, and there's like I mean, it's not a huge community yet, but I think it's like growing, and everybody's very supportive to like teach each other and like share resources with each other. Yeah. So yeah, I think that this is like one of the hidden gems that you don't really realize unless you actually look at all the specs that the OPC has, which I feel is kind of like a little cryptic, like just like by seeing it. Like I've showed it to a lot of people who are like maybe a little bit familiar with electronic music, and they're like, oh, okay, what is this, like a calculator? What is this, like a weird futuristic device that I don't know what it does? And I'm like, oh yeah, it does this and this and this. You can hook it up to your modulars. You can also like make music on the fly. It has a little speaker, and you can also like control visuals and lights, which like this other part with the DMX lights, I haven't even like messed around with at all. But this is like, to be able to do this without like having to lug your laptop around. So props.
Yeah, huge. It's huge. And there's no screen.
Right?
All of this stuff, and there's no screen. And so obviously I don't have a OPZ, but folks that I see using an OPZ and people that I know that have them, the muscle memory of moving around that thing becomes second nature. Whereas if you look at it, think of all the stuff that you just said it can do, you kind of be like, how am I ever going to do that with this interface, right? But it's, from what I understand, it's very intuitive once you kind of get the way it works, and then you're moving around really quick. You don't even think about the fact you don't have a screen and more stuff there to navigate.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Like when I first like got my hands on one, I was like, okay, it doesn't have the screen. How do I do anything? And then like after a couple of like, I don't know, a couple of weeks of like messing around with it, reading the manual, watching some videos, it, like you say, it does build, like you build a muscle memory for it. And like making all these weird hand movements to just reach the buttons, it kind of like, it's kind of fun because it's like playing a video game somehow. So you kind of have to do this kind of like, it's just really fun. And it really becomes like really, like turn it on, you're making music.
There's an app though, you can use there's like an Apple app, right? Or iPad app?
Yeah, there's an app, and I was going to say, I not that I don't read manuals, I do, but sometimes I have a hard time just internalizing the information from a manual, if I'm also like trying to read it and play it or something. So I like the app because when you're in the app, it also displays everything that the OPZ is doing. So you can kind of cheat some of the button combinations in the beginning if you want, and use your app screen on your iPhone as your interface for controlling some of the more complex or tucked away features. And so in that way, you can really like learn at your own pace. Like I learned the combos little by little. I was like, I'll just make myself learn one, you know, every couple of days, so I don't get overwhelmed about memorizing all of them, and just control it from the app and be good with that. So for me, that was, I kind of wish every tool came with that integration to help me
so you could
slow down my combos. Yeah.
So I do have a question, actually. So as we're talking about going back to the OP1 and when it came out and how people have talked, yes, the OP1 is a classic, and the questions, some of the talk in the chat, and which I've heard too, is just, you know, questioning about the difference of the price and things like that. And maybe that's something you can kind of shed a little light on for those in the chat, like out there, just what, like some of the screen and.
Yeah, so the OP1 is definitely beloved by all of us and lots of other people too. Something that happened over time is that some of the parts, particularly the screen, became unavailable. And those of us who work in manufacturing or electronics know that as technology evolves over time, sometimes you find that a part of yours doesn't exist anymore. And that probably happens more than we're aware of in technology, but sometimes it's a small thing where you can switch it out without redesigning too much, and those cases are awesome. But we found ourselves without our proper screen, and so we found a good screen that was a replacement for it, but to get that screen mounted properly also involved a redesign of it in a hardware sense, and also some of the tools. And of course, just inflation over the decades. So all of those things combined to make the product viable for its hopefully really long lifespan. We had to pick a sustainable price.
That makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of address that, because I know that, yes, so thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Oh, and you know, one of the things, I just looked it up because I wanted to remember, right, is 2011 is when this thing hit the market. Here we are, damn near 2021. So it's a veteran of a product at this point. And for that screen, I could imagine something like that would happen. I mean, because, you know, if this is the same type of technology and the same type, I think if I recall correctly, and I don't need any of us to actually know this, but I think if I recall correctly, when this thing first came out, I remember seeing, you know, it was kind of like a little bit of a profile, a little bit of a tease, and a little bit of a, you know, and then it was on the website, it was all straight and it looked like, and I was just scrolling like, what in the hell is this? Like, it was just, it was such a dope design and so sleek. And then when you read the feature set, I was kind of thinking like, there's no way all of that is in that. And then you kind of wonder, like when this was happening, all of these kind of thoughts were going through my mind, and even some friends of mine, we would kind of talk about this stuff. That was 2011. And so if the technology that was made for this in 2011 was probably made for other devices that they, you know, engineered to work with this device. So for instance, if it was a phone screen, if it was a screen that was made for like phone technology at the time, you know how quick phone technology turns over and turns around, and you know what I mean? Yeah. I think you kind of got lucky with even the idea that it lasted through all of that time, and then all of a sudden it became a shortage. Then you're even luckier to be able to create this in the same way without having to change the entire architecture all over again. And you know, it won't be the popular opinion at all. It won't be the popular opinion for me to say that we're lucky that it's, you know, just a few $100s more at this point, rather than not being able to be manufactured at all. So it's just an interesting sort of paradigm, an interesting sort of lineage that the story of the OP1 is an interesting one.
I think those are excellent points. Yeah, I think people don't realize that as time evolves, things have to change. Rebuilding. So I think that was a good point.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite pocket operators, guys.
They're 170 for me.
That's hard to pick. That's hard to pick. I like voice samples. I'm a simple person. I realized today talking to a friend that maybe part of why I like loopers so much is because they're just samplers too.
Nice.
How about you? What's your favorite?
Well, the first one I got, I've had it for a long time. Like when it first came out, is the Sub. Like I've had it to the point I've had it so long it's like has like a little corrosion thing happening on the side of it. But
it's becoming vintage.
yeah. I remember when I first got that thing, and I was like, I got it from Guitar Center, like, and I still have it. And like, it is like it has. I plugged the auxiliary into my car, and I was like, this thing has a lot of bass. I was like, this is not just a little toy. I mean, it's fun and like very compact, but it has a lot of punch. Like I've made some tracks and released and charted with those tracks with that as my bass line. So just to kind of put that out there, like those are, they're very powerful. Like
I think that's the deceptive thing about them. Like they're deceptively small, but then when people connect them to systems, you know what I mean, or sample them and use them and track them into their DAW. Like if you ask somebody, yo, what's that sound? What you used to do that? And they say pocket operator, you may be surprised.
I know someone shouted out, we have one of our regulars do like the KO is great. What's the Speak one? Is that the 35? The KO is, or is there more? Okay.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that's number 35. I mean, I'm bad at numbers.
Yeah.
I know there's one that's a sampler that, and I think that may be the KO that Why Not is talking about. Okay, so I go through these conversations with people where we're like, it's the nerdiest sampler talk that you could probably get. Like, how crunchy can that one get? Just how lo-fi can this one get? And nothing is quite as great at the lo-fi as that one, that classic sampler and this classic sampler. But the thing that trips me out is that everybody around me has the KOs. And they're all like, this is like a classic sound. If you want that classic sound, you don't have to go buy like a huge box that's from the 80s. You know what I mean? For $2,000, because this little bitty KO can provide that sort of crunch and that classic sort of sampler vintage sound. I've seen it. I've heard it. Like somebody fooled me once and sent me something. It was like, yo, I just did this with my MPC 60. And I was like, yo, that's cold. It was the KO.
Nice.
It's happened.
There was a question. So the sampler, can you sample in real time while the clock is running? On that one.
While the clock is running. But, I see Toby in the chat. Maybe you can answer that. I think the answer is yes, but I will refer to my friend Tobias in the chat here. I'd like to phone a friend.
I wanted to give a shout out to Trovarsi. Thanks for joining us and hanging out with us. I know we have a lot of good shout outs here about all the pocket operators, the arcade. Everyone's like, I love my arcade. I always hear nothing but good things about the pocket operators. Like I said, compact, but super powerful. Super powerful.
Yeah. It's dope that they sell them in packs too now.
Yes. We do have some actually on Perfect Circuit. We do sell some of the packs, the 10s. We call the pack 10s. We'll have which I believe is the 3-pack. I can pull that up just so people can kind of check.
Yeah, it's the PO12, the PO14, and the PO16.
Yeah.
That's the pack 10.
Share that. This one here. I can drop the link in the chat too. I just want to ask anybody in the chat if they have any other questions or just how everyone is doing, and if they have any questions for our team here before we start to kind of wrap it up. I know that Moises has another performance for us before we close out the hour proper.
I have a question. There's a couple of new pocket operators, or no? Are there?
The Rick and Morty one?
Metal. This says PO Metal coming soon. On Teenage Engineering, and then there's an Ultimate Punch arriving soon. Are those new?
Let me see.
Here, I'll share my screen if I can here.
Yeah, if you can.
The Metal series is wow. You can get the Metal series, I believe, on our website right now.
Oh, okay. So maybe it just sold out. That's probably what happened then.
Yeah. I just double checked if any of them are back in stock.
Here we go. Thanks, Corey.
Mm-hmm.
Those were released and they did sell out already. They're not back in stock. You're right. Okay. For us. Yeah.
Nice. And that's the other thing. I could imagine, because these are like they're almost like impulse buys. When you get to some of these down here, the 137, the 33, the 35. I mean, under $100. And I mean, I'm not lying. I've seen people connect them to even guitar pedals and effects units, and totally blow your mind with stuff that can be created with it. I went to Trovarsi. Remember, we went with Afro Rack, and we were in East LA. We were teaching kids synthesis.
Oh, and, yes.
Yeah, some of the parents were asking, what could they get to kind of get their kids into making music and stuff. And, barring any kind of free stuff, obviously we threw a couple free things out there, but, pocket operators was like a huge recommendation, and say like under $100, you can get something to start making music. And chances are they'll like it enough that as they advance in their music, they'll still be using that. You know what I mean? Yeah. It still kind of applies.
That's true. And they can carry it around with them, Yeah. Very cool. I do want to just give a shout out to everyone that's participated in the chat and just with us, and just say thank you. We really appreciate it. And do you guys want to have anything to add before we get to Moises' performance? Alissa, do you have anything you want to kind of throw out to anyone else in the chat, or
no, just thanks for having us, and thanks for showing up. It's nice to talk to everyone. And I see someone said put Tobias on the payroll. He is. We really appreciate Tobias.
Yeah.
We wouldn't hear of it.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, thank you all for the invitation, and I hope you enjoyed the last little performance.
Yeah, it was dope, man. It's always good to catch up with you guys. It's good to meet you, Moises, and it's always good to talk to you, Alissa. It's good to see you all doing well, and thanks for coming through. It's good conversation.
Yes, and thank you, Alissa. Appreciate it, and Moises, nice to meet you too. And all right, so are you ready to give us a little performance to close us out?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hang tight. Check out. We're going to get some more techno here. Nice.
Peace.